Students, today we start with our 12th standard syllabus of biology. Okay, so we start today with the first unit of reproduction. In this particular unit, we have reproduction in lower and higher plants and reproduction in lower and higher animals. Okay, now today we begin with a part of reproduction in lower and higher plants. Okay, now I start sharing the screen, okay, with you all. Just focus on what I say and see the screen properly to understand the concept. Okay, yes. Now when we say reproduction in lower and higher plants, that means we first need to understand what is reproduction. Now basically reproduction means producing of a similar kind, right? Now what similar kind? A similar kind of offspring which is similar to the parent. Yes, okay, that means a flower will, a hibiscus flower will give rise to a hibiscus flower. A rose plant will give rise to a rose plant. So that means producing of a similar kind of offspring just like the parent plant. Okay, now first we need to understand why do we need reproduction? Why does anyone need reproduction? We need reproduction first of all for the continuation of the species, right? Now, or and continuity of the life. Now what do you mean the continuation of species? Now continuation of species means if the process of reproduction stops, what would happen? The entire earth will be empty, right? There will be no plants, there will be no animals, there would be no human beings. Yes, so there should be a continuation of species and continuity of life. Yes, the life has to go on, so we need to reproduce. So we means any living organism need to reproduce of the similar kind like that of the parent. Okay, now we go to the categories of reproduction. That means the first category, that is the asexual reproduction. Now as you see in the screen, what is asexual reproduction? That is without gametes. That means in asexual reproduction there is no gametes utilized. That means whatever individual is produced is of the similar progeny like that of the parent without using a male and a female gamete. Okay, now when you see, now how do you reproduce without a gamete? We reproduce asexually by different methods. So we go to the next slide. The first method of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. Now what do you understand by fragmentation? Here in the slide you see that there is a Spirogyra filament. Okay, now this Spirogyra filament is broken down into further smaller fragments and each fragment grows again into a new fragment. So the process is continuous. That means एक पीस का छोटा छोटा टुकड़ा हो गया, हर एक छोटा टुकड़ा नए टुकड़े में बन के ग्रो हो जाएगा. समझ में आ रहा है? Yes, okay. Now the next one, the budding. The example is yeast. Okay, now yeast, what do you mean by yeast? Have you heard about the word yeast? Now yeast is generally used for what? For making baking products, say the bread, the pizza bread, all this stuff, right? Now what happens when you take a flour, a maida, right? When you take a flour and you add yeast in that, okay, what happens? And you keep it for some time, that yeast starts multiplying. And when the yeast starts multiplying, after a few hours, when you see the floor has swollen up. Okay, and then the bread is being baked out of that maida flour. That is because of the carbon dioxide that has been released out of that. Okay, now how is that done? That means the nucleus and the vacuole, they multiply and form a chain of buds. That is how the entire floor gets swollen up. That is because of the budding process of the yeast. Okay, so we go to the next slide. The next slide is the spore formation. This is another method of sexual reproduction. Now here there are two examples shown. One, the cladomonas and the rhizopus. Now what happens in the cladomonas? What do you see there? You see the cladomonas, the parent cell releases out the zoospores. Now each individual zoospore, they start going out as an individual and grow and multiply as again. Okay, then the next example, you find the spore formation in a fungus, that is the rhizopus. Now here in fungus, you see, you have studied in 11th standard, right? You saw there's a sporangium above the hypha. Now that sporangium has many spores. Yes, has many spores, right? Now that spores are being released out, right? And they fall on a suitable soil. Now, say, have you seen a bread? On a bread, when you see a green color fungus generally grows, or it is sometimes blackish in color, right? And that it gets swollen up, right? You can see the hyphae above that. Okay, yes. So that is nothing but the rhizopus. So that is asexual reproduction by spore formation. Clear? Now we go to the next one, that is the vegetative propagation. Now in the vegetative propagation, you have studied a part of it in 11th standard. Now in 11th standard, you have studied the chapter morphology of flowering plants, right? Now in that morphology of flowering plants, you have studied modification of root, modification of stem, modification of leaf, right? Now in the modification of root, modification, you will find that sweet potato. See there in the diagram, vegetative propagation by roots of dahlia and sweet potato, right? Right? Okay. Then you see the rhizome in ginger. Then vegetative propagation by the tuber in potato. See here in the ginger and in the potato, you will find the bud that is coming out, right? In the potato as well as in the ginger. From there, the new germinating buds are coming out. That means if a part of the ginger, a part of the potato put under the soil would germinate out into a new plant. Okay. Then in the similar way, you find the vegetative propagation by bulb in onion. Yes. Then we go to the stem, the stolon, right? The chrysanthemum, the strawberry, the offset. Yes. In lettuce, water lettuce, right? All of these, a part of it when cut, it grows into an new individual. Okay, so vegetative propagation, that is naturally. That means each plant grows from a part of the plant. Okay, correct? So we go to the next slide, that is artificial propagation. Now in artificial propagation, now what do you understand by the word artificial propagation? Now in artificial propagation, that means it is done artificially. That means we take a plant, we cut a plant from a bigger plant and we plant it in the soil. That means हम किसी से एक पौधा की एक टहनी, जैसे हम गुलाब का पौधा लगाना है तो हम किसी से गुलाब का पौधे की एक टहनी लेके आते हैं और उसको नए सॉइल में लगाते हैं. So that is a typical kind of artificial propagation and the method is called as cutting. Okay, now that is the another one, that is grafting. Now what do you mean grafting? Grafting means that we take two plants, yes, one plant which has many buds, okay, and another plant which is put in the soil. So the part of the plant which is in the soil is called as the stalk, okay, and the part which has many stems is called as the scion, okay. So what we do is we make a cut in the stalk and we put the scion in it. Now what is the basic use of this grafting? There are multiple uses. There are different kinds of grafting. Different methods of grafting are there. That depends on the kind of plant that we want. Okay. Now you might have seen a flower, say a rose. A rose you might have seen आधा सफेद है आधा पिंक है, लाल है थोड़ा पिंक है, yes, dark orange है, yellow है. How is that possible? You might have seen a hibiscus flower, pink and white. Yes. So these days you might have seen so many new flowers or new plants are being grown. How is that possible? A part of this is done through grafting. So what you need, and you want to mix it with someone. That means you want to mix red with white. So we will take one stalk, say with the white plant, white rose, and the stalk and the scion with red rose, okay, and we put it together and then we tie it, so that you might have seen the tying process there, right, and we keep it absolutely moist, okay, and then we allow it to grow, and then you would find that a new plant has been grown from where it has been joined, and you will find the new buds that would come out would have a rose or a hibiscus, whatever plant you choose, according to the type of two colors that you've chosen. Okay, so this is a kind of artificial propagation that is done by man, okay, artificially. Now the next one is the tissue culture. Now what is tissue culture? Tissue means many cells, right? So we take cells from the plant that we want, okay. Now say if we want to grow a particular kind of plant in Mumbai that is not available in Mumbai, but we want to grow that, right? So what we would do is we would bring that plant, a part of that plant, we would culture it artificially in a medium, in a nutritive medium called as agar, okay, and those cells will multiply and form a group of cells called as callus. Yes, and then those calyx have been put in a nutritive medium again and it's been kept moist. You will see in the beaker there, okay, you will see in the beaker there many such cells have been put, the callus have been put together. Yes, after they grow to a certain extent, they've been shifted. Individual callus has been shifted into individual test tubes wherein a new plant is grown, and once it grows to a particular extent, they've been shifted out from there and then planted to a soil. That is how a particular kind of species which may be not be found in Mumbai would be planted here in Mumbai, and with the help of such tissue culture we could produce clones or new kind of a plant that you might have not seen. So you could bring an African plant here from there and you could put it on in Mumbai and put it in an artificial medium and you could grow it out. Okay, so what did we do till now? We did what is reproduction, what's the need of reproduction, we did asexual reproduction, wherein we saw, what did we see? We saw the different types of asexual reproduction, that is fragmentation, budding, spore formation, and vegetative propagation. Yes, so all this was asexual reproduction, wherein you might have seen there is no gametes used. So there are different materials, like say the material is what? The spores, or maybe a part of the plant that's been cut, or a vegetative bud is been cut and planted in the soil, or comes in contact with a suitable soil condition or a climatic condition, would help the plant to grow into a new plant. So here there is no male gamete and no female gamete utilized. So that is asexual reproduction. Okay. Now we go to the next slide, wherein we would see sexual reproduction. Okay. Now in sexual reproduction. Now what is sexual reproduction? What we had seen in the very first slide, sexual reproduction means utilization of gametes, right? Now in plant, where do these gametes come from? So in a plant, the flower is a part or a source of sexual reproduction. Now you have studied 11th standard, in 11th standard the structure of flower, right? The LS of flower, right? Isn't it? So in that, what did you study? You will see here in the diagram. You might have seen. Now see here the diagram. What do you see? The parts of a plant, of a flower. You will see the petals, you will see the pedicel, you will see the corolla, the androecium, the gynoecium, right? Now, what is the male part and the female part? That would produce the male gamete and the female gamete. Now, here in the flower, you will see the part that has been circled black in color. To the right top, the connective tissue, that is the stamen, right? The stamen which has the filament and the anther lobe. Now this anther lobe consists of the male gametes or the pollen grains that we would study later ahead. Okay, and to the lower part here, wherein you will see the ovary, that is the female gametophyte, that is the gynoecium. This gynoecium consists of the ovules or the female gametophyte, okay, which we would study later. Now you would see in the flower there are two parts, that is the sepal, that is consisting of the calyx, and the petal consisting of the corolla. Now what is the importance of the sepal and the petal, or what is the main part, what is the main role of this corolla? Why is the flower colorful? Why is the flower colorful? To make the flower so attractive that pollination takes place. You might be having an idea of what is pollination, that we would study ahead, okay? But you need to understand what is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a method wherein male gamete and a female gamete fuses together to form a zygote. Yeah, and here in case of a plant, the zygote would be the taking place in the ovary, wherein a new fruit is being formed. There would be seeds, and then the process continues, right? How do we grow a plant? We generally sometimes have seeds, right? That we have studied in standard 11 standard also, a monocot seed and a dicot seed, right? So we would study that further, how seeds are formed, how the male gametophyte is formed, how female gametophyte is formed. Okay, so for this lecture we stop here. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to download, if you have a test book. Okay, if you have a test book, you would go to the last page of the chapter 1. Okay, or if you don't have a test book, you would download the 12th standard biology PDF that is available on the net. Clear? Okay, now what you would do is you would do a homework. Okay, yes, you would do a homework of the topics that we did. Okay, now you will see here in question number 5, fill in the blanks. The structure of a flower has been put up. So what you're going to do is you are going to label out the parts of this particular flower. Yes, then you would solve out the questions of the topics whatever has been taught today. Clear? You would solve all the questions and keep them ready. Okay, you will go through the chapter properly for the portion that I've taught just now, and we would have one day a query session. That means if you didn't understand a part, we would solve out the problems. So in chapter 1, we would divide this entire chapter in 4 to 5 lectures. Okay, now after each lecture you would solve the questions pertaining to the topic that I taught just on that particular day. Okay, you will write down in a notebook. Okay, you will write down in a notebook all the questions for the topics that we did, and now you will see that in board the topic that we did just now, they would ask the kind of questions that would ask is reproduction for 1 mark. Yes, the types of reproduction or sexual reproduction, so they could ask you distinguish between asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay, then or they would just ask describe the process of fragmentation, or they could ask just budding, or they could ask just spore formation, or they could ask just artificial propagation. Okay, so any of these could be asked individually for 2 marks each. Okay, for 2 marks each. Okay, then they could also ask you what is sexual reproduction, the structure of a flower. So in case if they ask you the structure of a flower, they could ask you for 2 marks, wherein you need to draw a neat label diagram of the flower. So I hope all of you are having your 11th standard test book, right? In that you had a diagram of the LS of the hibiscus flower or a typical flower, right? So all of you will practice the diagram of the typical flower. You will practice the diagram of fragmentation. You will practice the diagram of the budding. You will practice the diagram of vegetative propagation, that is artificial propagation. They could ask you what is stalk, what is scion. Okay, they could ask the types of artificial propagation. So it could be for 2 marks. So wherein you need to write down, it could be cutting and grafting, it could be cutting and tissue culture, whatever. Now remember, in this particular chapter, if they ask you fragmentation, you need to write down examples along. So if fragmentation is asked for 1 mark, so half a mark would be for your definition of fragmentation and half a mark would be for your example. Okay, this should not be forgotten. Now if they ask you to distinguish, say it's for 2 marks, then you need to write down 2 points. So it could be 1 mark each, or if the topic has sufficient number of points, then for 2 marks maybe 4 points. Is it clear? Okay, so I hope all of you will go through the section. For beginning, I have taken a very small topic. We did a small part of sexual reproduction and introduction to sexual reproduction. Yes, So all of you refer your 11th standard textbook for the diagram of LSF flower. Yes, for vegetative propagation, say the sweet potato, the potato. Yes, how the buds are cut and grow into a new part. Right? Okay. So we end for the day today. Thank you and study well. And be safe, stay home. Thank you.